Hey guys, welcome back to the Rough Cuts Garage. Today we're going to be replacing the front and rear brake pads on this 2010 Honda XL700V Transalp. Okay, so here are the parts that we're going to be using today. The two sets of brake pads on the left are for the front brakes, and the pads on the right are for the rear brakes. Part numbers and the website that I purchased these brake pads from will be in the description below. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to check is the brake fluid reservoir level right here. I'm going to take the lid off this reservoir, and then we're going to make sure that there's enough room in here from the level of where the fluid is so that when we compress the caliper pistons, the fluid level will not rise to want to overflow out of this reservoir. Now you're going to want to be really careful because you don't want to get brake fluid on the paint of your bike because it will eat through it. It looks like there's plenty of room for the brake fluid to rise when we compress the cylinder pistons. So to check the fluid reservoir for the rear brake caliper prior to compressing the piston, you can come under here on the right-hand side, and right there is the reservoir, and then you can see that the fluid level is in between the two lines. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is to push this way on the caliper. That way it causes the piston to push back in. This will allow us to have some give in the system, and it will allow us to rotate the caliper back, replace the pads, and then create enough room for the new pads to slide on, as they will be thicker. So we're going to push and compress the caliper, and you can see there's some wiggle room now. Loosen off the pad pin. And next we're going to want to remove the rear pad mounting bolt. Rotate up the caliper, being careful not to bend the brake line too much. And pull the pads out. Okay, so now you can see a comparison between the old and new pads. You can see right here that it's definitely time to replace these pads, as there's very little material left on the rear pads compared to the new pads. Okay, so now we're going to put in the new pads. The inside pad to be in this orientation with your little hole here for your pad pin to go through. Tilt this back, push it towards the bike so that you can slide the pad in on the inside of the rotor. And then there's these little spring tabs on the inside that provide a little bit of pressure. And now I'm just going to hold it like this to keep it in line while we put in the other pad. And you're going to hold the pads in there while you put your pad pin in. You kind of need to shimmy them around so you can line the caliper back up. Take our caliper bolt and we're going to slide it in here. The final step for the rear brakes will be to actuate the rear brake, and that way it'll reset the positioning for the pads and the caliper. That's the rear brakes done. Now let's go move on to the front brakes. So here's the replacement front brake pads with the correct part number. All links again will be in the description below. Okay, so for the front brake pads, you're going to roughly do the same thing as the rear. You're going to take the caliper, you're going to push it in. Now you're going to remove the pad pin. Outer one. Okay, so here's a comparison between the old and new pads. So before putting the new pads on, I just want to show you where you're seating them. There's a clip up top, both on the inner and outer pads. And they're kind of sprung loaded forward, so you can push back to line them up with the pad pin hole. And there we go. That's the pads on the front replaced. All right, so that sums up the replacement of the front and rear brake pads on this 2010 Honda XL700V Transalp. Hope this video helps, and we hope to see you next time. Cheers.